We take a look at the brightest talent in MLS, but is any of it heading to the Premier League? The football agent generally gets a bad press. We hear the case for the defence. And what's happening and where, an update as the transfer window prepares to shut. Welcome to the second of our two shows today as we count down to the end of the transfer window. Joining us on the sofa, John Smith, the original super agent and a legend in his own profession. And Miles Jacobson, who's probably caused more arguments than anyone else in football as the man behind the incredibly addictive Football Manager game and franchise. MLS in America has grown massively in the last few years with a renewed credibility and a host of stars plying their trade in front of big crowds and a growing TV audience. Cracking America has long been the holy grail for FIFA, but could a new wave of young American stars be heading to the bright lights of Europe? Here's our expert, Graham Ruthven, with more.
Signed straight from college last year, Jordan Morris went on to become one of MLS's greatest ever rookies in his first season as a professional. The striker scored 14 goals for the Seattle Sounders as they finally broke their MLS Cup duck. Morris already has 12 senior USA caps to his name, with Jurgen Klinsmann calling him up to the national team while he was still at Stanford. The 22-year-old is more than just one for the future, he's one for the present. Kyle Larin is only 21, but he has already achieved rather a lot in MLS. The Canadian has bagged 31 goals in just 2 seasons for Orlando City, becoming one of the most consistent strikers in the league. At 6'2", Orlando play off the physicality of Larin, but it's his instinct in front of goal that makes him so dangerous. His Orlando teammate Kaká says the striker could one day play for a big team in Europe, as he put it. That's a fair prediction. Ronald Matarrita was arguably the success story of New York City FC's 2016. The Costa Rican filled a problem area for the Bronx side, making the left-back position his own. Defensively sound, Matarrita is the epitome of the modern fullback, dominating the left wing whenever he plays there. He's already attracting interest from Europe, with Borussia Dortmund and Hamburg both reported to be interested in the 22-year-old. Another season like last season, and NYCFC might have trouble keeping hold of him for much longer. Long considered one of the brightest young talents in the American game, Kellen Acosta has a lot of expectation heaped on his shoulders. FC Dallas boasts the best youth academy in MLS, and the 21-year-old midfielder is the vanguard of their next generation. Acosta might not get the attention of some of MLS's bigger, more renowned stars, but he can decide a match just as well as anyone else. Exceptional at reading the game, he uses his speed and positional awareness rather than his physicality to break down opposition moves. He is a modern kind of anchoring midfielder. At the age of just 14, Jack Harrison left Manchester United's youth academy to make the move to the States. Now, aged 20, he plays for New York City FC alongside the likes of David Villa and Andrea Pirlo. What's more, Harrison is just as integral to the Bronx side. Indeed, the young Englishman was arguably the breakthrough star of the 2016 MLS season, scoring 4 times and assisting 6 times from a position out wide. Harrison's route to America was unconventional, but he might just have forged a new path for youngsters looking to make it big in the States.
Thanks, Graham. So, John, they're trying to get it going in the States. They've been trying to get it going ever since I've known about football in the States. But how long before someone like you tries to bring an American player over here?
Oh, it's already happening. I mean, there are American players all around Europe. And from an internal point of view, bear in mind, a lot of what happens in America, for Americans, only really matters in what happens in America. So, for a country that hosts a World Series in baseball and no other country plays, they look inwardly and they now look at their franchises, which are going for around about $100 million a franchise. So it's been a 20-year journey. It's a long journey, but it's been sustained. Previously, those journeys have collapsed. This is happening. It's happening well. It's
happening the other way around as well, Miles. You were telling me about a player who was offered terms at Celtic and said no.
Yes, there's a kid recently, unfortunately, I can't remember his name, but he decided that rather taking a pro deal at Celtic, he was going to go to university in the US instead and is playing out there. It's actually happening more and more with young players because so many players get released from clubs in the UK. Very, very few players are actually breaking through. They're looking for the other routes out, and there's quite a lot of them there. And Brett Shea was brought over a few years ago to Sunderland, who is a young left-footed player who didn't quite break through into the first team. But some of the players out there now, they're definitely getting their stuff together. And the whole academy system in the MLS is actually something very new. They didn't have academies. They were playing for the clubs in the two other divisions over there. But the clubs all now have academies. So even things like the draft system that they had is becoming secondary with the younger players compared to the academies. And it's showing with the players that are coming through already. Whether they're going to be able to get work permits over here is another matter entirely.
It's a whole new issue that applies to lots of things American. Just briefly, John, if it happens there, if it happens properly, what effect will it have on the game?
Well, there's a lot of money over there, and the American mindset's good. The stars travel well. I would argue it will happen, pertinently because social media is driving a lot of sporting chatter these days, and social media is driving soccer. It's driving soccer beyond baseball. I don't mean in terms of numbers, but the baseball audience is older, the soccer audience is younger. So I think it will definitely come to be in terms of its global rankings. The problem it's got is that originally the women in America won the World Cup, and some parts of America still think it's a ladies' sport.
One of the curious facts about this window has been the lack of activity among the top 6 clubs. In fact, Chelsea could see as many as 5 players leave before the window slams shut. Antonio Conte expects Branislav Ivanovic to be one of those.
Yeah, he played a lot of games for this club, and he won a lot for this club. And he's 32, and I think he can play for many years, and is able to continue his career in the right way and top level. Yes, but it's important also to respect the decision of the player. Above all, if this type of player are legend in the club, and arrive a moment that if you are not playing a lot, you can decide to make another decision and to go in another team. But I have great respect for him, for this type of player.
Now, Football Whispers uses state-of-the-art technology to give you the best guide anywhere to what's really going on in the transfer market. Here's how. Well, that's how it works. Here's James Lorenzo with the Whispers, most likely to be making the back pages in the next few hours.
Thanks, Matt. There are a fair few deals yet to be pushed over the line and a lot of very high indexes in our top 10, none more so than the 4.9 of Branislav Ivanovic. We've just heard Antonio Conte revealing that the fullback has been talking to several clubs, but we think that Zenit St. Petersburg will be his destination and that this deal is as good as done. Now, Jerome Sinclair is in third and on a 4.6 to move from Watford to Birmingham City on loan. The former Liverpool striker only moved to Vicarage Road this summer, but has found first-team football difficult to come by in London, and a move to Birmingham could give him a chance to find his feet. Josh Windass is in 8th on an index of 4 to move from Rangers to the club where his father Dean made his name. Hull have got money to burn after the departures of Jake Livermore and Robert Snodgrass, as well as the pending departure of Andrew Robertson, so I wouldn't be surprised if this one goes through fairly soon. Craig Gordon looks to be closer to a move to Stamford Bridge, following on from my deal of the day earlier. Antonio Conte revealed that current backup Asmir Begovic will leave once a replacement has been found. And there's nothing to suggest that that replacement will be anyone other than Gordon. That's all from me for now, but you can track all of these deals and more on our website and on the Football Whispers app.
Thank you, son. Now, in the world of football, it's fair to say that agents get it in the neck from just about everyone, be it managers, chairmen, or even the players themselves, despite the £1 million salaries they command. So John Smith is the perfect man to launch the case for the defence. He's looked after some of the biggest names in the sport, including Diego Maradona and Ruud Gullit. So, John, you've heard this about 99 times in 35 years. It is all your fault, though, isn't it? I mean, it's the money.
Of course it is. But there's a TV series on at the moment called Tina and Bobby, and chronicles the rise of Bobby Moore and what happened in his career. And part of it, the month before the World Cup final began in England in '66, he was told, here's a contract for you to sign for West Ham. If you don't sign that contract, you're not eligible to play in the World Cup. Therefore, that's it. No negotiation. Bang, done. You know, we've stopped things like that happening. I sat around that table with Murdoch and Sugar and Day and Carter and all those people in 91, 2, actually started in 1990, and we all helped create the biggest entertainment on the planet. And people like me and the raft of senior agents have brought the biggest talent all around the world to these shores and created probably the best entertainment that we have exported since the Beatles. I rest my case, and there's a lot more I could throw at that.
Well, your game is not a game in that it's so close to the real one. Or where do you see the role of agent in Football Manager?
I think most people, when they're playing the game, spend their time swearing at the agents for the fees that they're asking for, but also the power that it's given to the players. But you have to look at it both ways. Football clubs, if a player isn't playing well, the fans call for them to be dropped. They're dropped, they might get sold. If a player is doing well and they want to move to a bigger club, then that player is disloyal. The amount of money that flows through the game is absolutely incredible, and the intermediaries, as they're now known, I'm not allowed to call them agents anymore, they do have a dual role because they do tend to do the transfer side of things as well. There aren't many times when a club will phone another club and go, I've got a player available, do you want to buy them?
It's amazing that, isn't it? It's amazing that. It's actually getting better now, but most of the time I've been around the business, the call's gone to us rather than the other club. It's astonishing that.
But it still happens all the time, and you get agents who specialise in just doing those transfers with the relationships that they've got. I think if the money's there, then the footballers should be able to earn what they're able to get out of them, and if the agent is able to do it, then that's great. But I do think that there's something wrong with the way that agents work compared to what I call managers in other industries and in other entertainment industries, which is they don't tend to look after their clients apart from doing the deals. There are some exceptions, and there are some big agencies who look after the players' financial affairs and all the rest of it that goes round it. But the idea of organising everything for them and sometimes having a word with the player going, you shouldn't be going out to that club tonight because you've got training first thing in the morning. That's the side of things that doesn't always happen. The good agents do it.
Yeah, I think what Miles says is probably correct, but the big agencies do that, as you just said. I can't remember a time when the clients that we managed, we had 400 at the height of our influence, where their interests were, of course we're a business so we look after ourselves, but their interests were paramount. We were one of the first people to set up an inside agency looking after booking them cinema tickets, buying them holidays, buying them motor cars, all of that facility. And the problem for today is FIFA have washed their hands of this, and they've said, it's too difficult for us to regulate, we're going to go off and do other things. And they've handed it back to the individual football associations around the world, which means, and again, as Miles just said, we've changed from being agents to intermediaries, of which when we were agents a year or so ago, there were 400 in England. There are now 1,600 intermediaries in England, and we're all tripping over each other's toes. And the large amount of that 1,600, take away the 400 that were there before, have gone there because they see it as an oil well in their back garden.
Let's have a check on how the agents or intermediaries are doing as the clock ticks down towards the end of the window. Deals obviously are still being done. Here's James again with the latest.
Thanks, Matthew. The deal makers and breakers are certainly still turning cogs with the clock still ticking. One move that has finally gone through after a fair few days of speculation is that of Patrick van Aanholt to Crystal Palace. We picked up that deal last week when it entered our top 10 on a 4.1, and the paperwork was finally completed today. Now, it has been a relatively busy window for Swansea City, who have brought in Martin Olsson, Tom Carroll and Luciano Narsingh this month, but they might not be done there because they are still rumoured to be in for Villa striker Jordan Ayew, as well as Benfica defender Lisandro Lopez. Now, we've mentioned that Branislav Ivanovic and Asmir Begovic might be leaving Chelsea. That would fit in well with the substantial clear-out that's been going on at Stamford Bridge recently. Oscar's gone to China, as has John Obi Mikel, whilst Patrick Bamford has moved to Middlesbrough. The league leaders have certainly been far more concerned with departures than arrivals this month. And the list of done deals will only get longer up until the deadline, so do stay up to date with all of the comings and goings at footballwhispers.com. That's all from me, Matthew.
James. This January window will be remembered as one that saw little activity from the so-called big clubs, certainly the top 6 at least. It looks like Carl Jenkinson will be staying at Arsenal after his proposed move to Crystal Palace fell through. No surprise here, but Arsene Wenger has also revealed he won't be signing Karim Benzema from Real Madrid.
This being January and the window, you're linked, as always, with Karim Benzema. I see some reports in the newspapers.
No.
It's every year. Why do you think this is the case?
Because he's French. And maybe there are some noises that he would leave Madrid, but as I just told you, there's no need for us to buy any striker.
That he's not a player that you would consider even in the summer window?
In the summer window, that's not my worry at the moment. What is my worry is the next game against Watford.
One of the busier clubs looked like being Sunderland, albeit after a slow start. David Moyes waved goodbye to Patrick van Aanholt and pocketed £14 million in the process, but he did turn down West Ham's offer for Jermaine Defoe. The rumour mill has linked the former Everton boss with several players who worked with him at Goodison Park. Darren Gibson and Brian Oviedo struggled for game time, but have made the move to the Stadium of Light. Leicester's Leonardo Ulloa has said he will never play for the Premier League champions again, but Leicester have so far turned down Sunderland's bids. So Ulloa, then we had, or before that we had Payet saying we're going on strike, we're not playing again. Well, that's not right, is it?
No, it's not, and I think I'm delighted. I am delighted that Payet's gone. You don't behave like that. I mean, David Sullivan gave him £1 million loyalty fee when he came back from the Euros, and that's how he treats him. No, look, there's a lot of money in football, and the players should be paid a lot of money because they're generating billions, literally. So I don't have a problem defending players' wages. I do have a problem when people throw their toys at the pram and their rattles at the fans, to use an old expression. The fans are the most important part of this game, together with the players, and they should be respected. And a player has a contract with a club, unless he's got an issue with the club or the coach or whatever, they should respect that contract, or use a decent agent to have a conversation with the club and another club, and then you quietly do your business. Not like this. That's wrong. Well,
Karen Brady has softened the blow for West Ham fans. If you just pay another 25 quid, she'll give you the shirt of your choice in return for Payet's shirt. We're talking about the fans. You obviously feed a need for the fans. Do you feel they're not getting a square deal from the game itself?
I think football fans have changed in the same way as football has changed. And we're certainly a lot less close, I think, football fans to the day-to-day side of the club. As someone who grew up with Graham Taylor and players actually having community service written into their contract, so they were going out into the community on a daily basis. That kind of stuff doesn't happen as often anymore. I feel sorry for the West Ham fans because obviously Payet was a hero of theirs and had done a good job there. There are rumours going around, who knows if they're true, that it was a family reason that he wanted to go back to Marseille. But the loyalty in football, again, it goes both ways, as we've spoken about. The supporters are the first to turn around and have a go at players when they're not doing well, or having a go at the manager when they're not doing well, and then love them when they are doing well. Payet, I believe, has taken a pay cut, hasn't he, to go back to Marseille?
It's a convoluted deal, but I would doubt whether it would be a pay cut. Because it's complicated only because the French tax system's complicated. So there are transactions within transactions.
That's true. But every football supporter wants to keep the best players, right? But then what happens if that player isn't playing? So with Joa, he wants to go because he wants to, according to him on Twitter last night, wants to feel like a footballer again. Can Leicester really keep a player who doesn't want to be in the squad, who's saying things like that?
Roman Abramovich can.
Yeah, well, he has.
He was not going to have the Chinese dictate to him. And the boy turned up and scored last week.
If I was Roman Abramovich, I'd still be concerned that a player who cost Celtic about 500,000 because he was out of contract with Fulham is now going to cost him 40 million if the rumours are to be believed.
Cite Pogba as well. You know, these things happen.
And they're rich enough and big enough to stomach it.
Yeah, I think so, and they'll amortise it on the balance sheet across the years of the contract.
So, what do you as a fan then think if your owner is prepared to stomach that sort of loss? I mean, does it matter to you that so many noughts are being expended?
It's their money at the end of the day, isn't it? So it's their money, it's their business. It's not yours as a season ticket holder at Watford. My season ticket's £450. That's what I'm putting in. That doesn't pay for Troy Deeney's laces for the season. So you can't expect to get that much say in it. We'd all like more say, of course.
It's astonishing, isn't it? Because football fans are the most tribally loyal people on this planet. You know, I was brought up an Arsenal supporter. I will die an Arsenal supporter. If you cut me, I bleed red. And yet, and I do deals all over the world with clubs. I do deals with Tottenham. By the way, I spoke to Daniel on Saturday when I was at the game, and he's not going to do anything this window, so you can rule him out for tomorrow. So, it's still there. But it's not my money. It's someone else's money, and whatever Stan Kroenke wants is what Stan Kroenke gets, and yet my loyalty is to my team.
Yeah, well, you just written yourself out of a job, because as soon as they heard that you were an Arsenal fan, in my ear they said, that's enough. I'm afraid that's enough. John, Miles, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That is indeed all the time we have for right now, but there's still time for you to get in touch via Facebook or Twitter and to let us know what you think. Tell us about any deals you know are in the offing, or simply put a question to our panel. We'll be back on Friday. Look forward to seeing you then.